It's pronounced Yasika.
Thank you, Jessica. And we are live on Facebook. So hello, everybody. I'm Love Coach Scott Catamas, and I'm really excited to share this evening with you. And this is an opportunity where we're going to be meeting four extraordinary people. They're all leaders in their community and in their own ways. And I just want to acknowledge briefly my partner in the show, Trish. I want to put the spotlight on. And we have with us today Jonah, and hopefully I'm pronouncing it right, Jessica. Did I get it right? And Michael, and Kenny. And do you prefer Kenny or Kenneth?
I've been called a lot of things. Kenny's fine.
Okay. And I'm appreciating that Ken brought to us Hanuman, who's one of my favorite deities, just above him. So each of you are going to get a chance to speak quite a bit tonight. It's going to be really listening to the four of you. And so what I'd like to do is ask each of you kind of an initial question, and then we'll come into greater conversation. Ken, you wrote a powerful book. You've had a powerful life. You have devoted your life to crime, first as a teenager and then over 20 years in various city, county, state, federal prisons. And while in prison, you received God's grace. You had an awakening. And paroled in 1997, so that's 23 years ago, successfully discharged from San Quentin, successfully discharged. You've been working with people for 23 years now, including inmates at San Quentin. You founded the Sacred Space Nonprofit Corporation. We want to hear a lot more about Sacred Space. And you talk about freedom. And so I'd love to just ask you to tell us a little bit about your story and maybe a little bit about your awakening.
Greetings to everybody, especially my four distinguished panelists and you, Trish, and the world. Gosh, how can I say that? Let me start like this. When I was in federal prison, I met my spiritual teacher, Gangaji. By that time, I had served over 20 years in prison, in different prisons. And it was 1994, September, and I was in the chapel, and she came in. And I had been writing her that summer. And we were all sitting in like a semicircle. She was right to my right. And I looked up at her and I asked her a question. I said, as a Christian, I have been taught to believe that we have to die and go somewhere to receive God's grace. And she looked at me and said, Kenny, God's grace is here now. But that didn't really register with me. And then she looked at me a little deeper and she says, you think that you're a black man? You think that you're a convict? You think that you're the father of your daughter? And you think that you're the son of your mother, and you're none of these things. And now I really had to take that in, because I could look at my skin, see I was a black man. I could look at my surroundings, see that I was a convict. And I just got a letter from my mother and my daughter, so those things were real to me. But the truth of what she said just slowly sunk in, and my mind just came to a screeching halt, and bam, I'm sitting there. And then she did something very unique. She told me, she says, lean your head over, and my head was like Michael's, totally bald. And I leaned my head over, and she took a mallet and tapped me 3 times right here. 1, 2, 3. And that brought all of my awareness to my forehead area, or which I say now to the frontal lobe. And I immediately went into a state of deep, calm, bliss, joy, and freedom. And on that spot, that moment, the story I had been telling myself, that I was a hustler, I was a pimp, I was a bank robber, I was a check casher, I was no good, I was a black man, blah, blah, all those stories that came as crashed, blam, they exploded. And then for the next 2 years, I was just bathed in what women call awakening and bliss and joy. But that story of a criminal vanished, but then I got out and I had to learn how to live in society. And that's when I hit every wall that I've always ran from. I always ran from being a responsible citizen. Now I had to finally learn how to be a responsible, law-abiding citizen. Uh, and I have been living that journey ever since, learning how to be a human being. I am at the stage now where I'm 71 years old, and I believe that if you don't address the programming that we got at our mothers and our grandmothers and our fathers and society's need from the age of 0 to 80 years old, if you haven't addressed that basic programming, then you haven't addressed the other programming that you got from society. And I got especially deep because when you go to prison, the prison system, if you can survive the prison system, then you have a second home. And that's where recidivism started coming in for me. I said, I can survive prison, so I can survive anything. So I'm cool. I can go out in the streets, rob and steal. And I'm cool. I can go back home. Prison became my main home, not my second home. It became my main home because I knew I could survive in prison as opposed to surviving out here on the streets. So I programmed myself with the help of the prison system to be okay living in bars. I imprisoned my mind. Now, each day I work by removing one bar, another bar, another bar, another bar with different neuroplasticity tools. I work with the subconscious programming that I have gotten from all of my conditioning.
Thank you so much for being with us and joining us today. It's really, really powerful. And I was going to go to Jessica next, but it looks like there she is. Great. And I'm looking forward to hearing much more. And thank you so much, Ken, for sharing with us. The next guest I want to briefly introduce is Jessica. She's hailing from Twin Cities, so that's an interesting element. Certainly not why I invited her, but she's a healer, artist, mother, and a conscious co-creator. And she has a real passion for creating life with purpose and experiencing the great awakening of the planet. And so there's a theme already emerging about, our seeing our life as a spiritual journey. And she's on a mission to serve, and she makes that an acronym, which is to see, embrace, reflect, value, and empower. To serve humanity in impactful and loving ways. Her dream is to co-create and live in a world where we all are safe, to live life as unique and authentic expressions of who we were born to be. Jessica, so much thank you for being with us. And likewise, clearly, there's something within you. There's a strong spiritual presence and a longing, a strong sense of mission. How did that evolve for you? Where did that come from for you?
Thank you, Scott. Hello, everyone. Well, for me, my awakening journey really started in 2008 is when I say I left the matrix and spirit had its way with me, shook me a lot, and opened my eyes to like what the true reality is, which is being a spirit having a human experience. And that I grew up Catholic, so I had like all of these kind of dogma that were already kind of ingrained that I battled my way through in my teen years, and then coming to this awakening and like feeling the Christed light and feeling what that is like to be one with the source was really powerful. And the journey that it's taken me on has been, I mean, it's like a storybook, really. moved to France based on divine guidance. I was painting one day and literally got the message like, you're moving to Paris in July, and it was May, and I had $30 in my account, and I didn't know where the money was coming from, and and I just started crying, and my mom came to visit, and I told her, and she's like, okay, whatever works. And then I was whisked off. Like, I mean, I sold all my things, packed 2 suitcases, bought the ticket the night before, and then, went on this adventure of self-discovery and discovered my voice. I discovered art and singing and Reiki, actually, which started with my, actually at my grandmother's bedside before my awakening. I was imagining, oh, I'm going to just put some beautiful light over her body. And because she was literally on her deathbed because she had fallen and broken her clavicle. And, I was just like, oh, healing light, whatever that means, I'll just do that. And I'm not touching her, just like swoop my hands across, and her whole body just flailed, and all the bells and whistles went off on the machine. And I was like, oh no, I killed my grandma. What happened? I didn't kill my grandma. She ended up, being fine. But I realized, I was like, what was that? And then in my journey to France, I learned about Reiki and learned about the power of our energy field and the power of, our healing abilities. And I was made aware that it's like, this is what we are. This is who we are. My external is the same as the car that I drive. Like, it's temporary. It's a, it's the vehicle that carries my soul. So it's a transporter for God. And so for me, coming to that awakening and seeing that who I really am is source, and we're all source, and we're all connected. It helps, especially now, to see, my brothers and sisters as literally my brothers and sisters. No matter the tone of our external vehicle, we're all one being. We're all one light source from the master creator. And whether we call it God or Allah or whatever that is, it's the same source that we all come from. And my mom was white. My dad is from Africa. I went through the whole, as a biracial child in Minnesota, where the predominantly fair-skinned individuals live. I had the, you're not white enough, you're not black enough, and kind of being in the middle. And I'm like, because I'm both. I'm everything. I'm all the things. So what I learned through my experience is we are all one. This is who we are. And there's no reason why anyone should be ostracized or categorized based on an external vehicle that's temporal. We all are the one source, and we all are the one beingness that is love and beauty. And we all get to be safe and to express that. And that's like what my dream is, that we all get to be safe and express our inner light and shine that. And I don't want to categorize anymore. I'm also working on my own languaging, right? Of, the programming of what we look like, judging books by their covers, like, open up the book, see what's inside, turn the page, like, so all that to say, my great awakening happened when my spirit came alive and guided me to the most amazing experiences, meeting people from all over the world and all over the country, and seeing that inherently we're all the same. We all want to be loved. We all want to be nurtured. We all want to belong. We all want to express ourselves. We all want to be included and a part of society, a part of a tribe, a part of life itself. And like, that's where my passion comes from. We all need healing. We all have trauma. We all have challenges and issues and victimhood and survivor, and we have all of that. And we can't spend our time anymore fighting amongst ourselves, right? We get to like connect. We get to be together, and we get to walk hand in hand as humans and say, hey, like, we are all God together, and let's vibrate higher. Let's do this together. Let's be this oneness that we all come from, and like, maybe sing Kumbaya by a fireplace. But really, so that's a bit about me. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience and doing my best to love, and I'm not perfect. I'm human mostly. And I have my experience, and I do my best to love and do my best to be my best. And no, and by no way am I perfect, other than the divinity that is through me and through each one of us. I'm complete.
So grateful to have all of you here, and each of you. I'm just already feeling so inspired. I want to introduce us next to someone who knows a lot about Jessica's ability to love, because it happens to be her partner. But he's here because Jonah Lyon is a visionary, a sacred activist. I love that term. We just had Andrew Harvey twice on our big Saturday Night Live show. He coined the term sacred activist. Jonah is a civil rights leader and a whole systems designer, and his mission is to support the realization of world peace through the innovation, gamification of education, self-actualization, and unification. Wow. He's the founder of the Jedi Academy and Jedi Alliance, a metaphysical training program working with the forces of nature to strategically organize conscious, co-created content to propagate the quantum field with ancient, future wisdom, forming teams of empowered sovereign beings able to respond as peacemakers. He also, of course, is very involved with working with Jessica in Serve. Wow, Jonah, I am so grateful to have you with us. And I think after listening to Kenneth and Jessica, kind of similar, how have you, what's kind of the brief version of your life's journey that's brought you to the place where you are today with this incredible mission that you have undertaken?
Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much, Scott, for having me on, and very honored to be part of this powerful panel. And thank you all for being here as well, and showing up in this share story and talk story. A little bit about my story is that Yasmin and I share a bunch of a similar background in the realm of our parents being interracial couple. My mother is an African American, and grew up in the South, and was a sharecropper who put herself through school, and after finishing up with her college degree, ended up going into the Peace Corps, and this was a time during the Vietnam War. My father, who was a Irish descent and lived in the Midwest, also ended up in the Peace Corps to escape the draft of the Vietnam War and choose into something they believed more in. And so that's where they met. And so product of that, and living I grew up in a small town in Northern California called Ukiah. And it was a very, predominantly white population. Any other, the minorities, which were the minority there, I could count the amount of Black people on one hand, and the rest were Chicanos, that were working the fields of agriculture in that area. And so definitely experienced the desire for belonging, and not knowing necessarily, like I was seen as, I didn't really get in with the few Blacks who were there, but a little bit, and definitely kind of the indifference there, and separation and this illusion. And so that there was some wounds that I've done a great deal of healing around. And I really resonated with much of what Kenny was saying. I had a wonderful breakthrough not too long ago, and this was at age 41. So to have this breakthrough at this time, to go back into some of the things, systemic oppression that was passed on through the conditioning you know, I grew up in, from the conditioning and what my parents experienced, what their parents experienced, and all the generations before that. And in this breakthrough, you know, there was a brother there. I was surrounded by a predominantly white group that were holding space for me to go into some deep shadow work. And I was recognizing there was a lot of anger coming up around feeling the years of oppression that I experienced, and then ancestrally. And there's a brother who's done some deep work in the prisons as well. I actually have a documentary film called The Work, Brother Barataji. And he came over and he shared with me some words, and the words that really stuck and resonated with me is that in order for them to be able to see your heart, they need to be able to hold your anger. And that allowed for me to really start to voice and open up my throat chakra and express what not only I experienced, but what was coming through me, you know, as through the generational trauma that all people have experienced, and that is this that is oppression. And so, you know, the awakening and the time period of that, and also just my path and story of desire to really show up in as in the best way that I can, as somebody who I was fortunate enough to where my parents are still together to this day. I didn't come up in necessarily an oppressed environment, but I was very aware of it and experienced it through observation, through family members' experience, through friends. And so I wanted to be a lighthouse, if you will, for that, and to offer any way that I could be of service with a space of heart-centered compassion and listening, and also coming from an empowered position to empathize, and then to how can we move through this? How can we move past this? How can we come into and reclaim our sovereign beings, you know, and to remember where we come from, and the culture and the roots and of which we all come from, you know. And that's where you know, as a young child, I still remember marching Martin Luther King Jr., you know, days, and out in the streets and marching as a very young child, and standing up for our human rights and our civil rights, you know, our rights of freedom. And at this current moment in climate, we're seeing that inflammation once again in our nation, and I'm hoping and praying that this time is going to be different, where we actually get to restore justice, and to really unify and come together, and to see each other and honor the diversity that we all are, to really honor that, because that's what makes it so beautiful, you know. The multicultural aspect of the planet, and it's such a beautiful place that we call home here, you know. And each of us and our differences is what makes us remarkable and miraculous, and so, you know, any way that I can show up and support that and be a model of that, an example of that. You know, we have a 3.5-year-old daughter, Yaska and I, and you know, so the next generations to come, the healing work that we do at this moment as parents, in that bridge is what will give them a safe space to really be able to be in unity consciousness together. And, you know, kids, they come in and they don't see color of skin. You know, they just see another kid, you know, somebody that's around their same height and same age, and they just go right in and play. They don't see that. And so, you know, racism and the illusion of separation is something that is taught, that's been conditioned. And now we get to reprogram, you know, and that takes a lot of presence and a lot of work. And so it's great to be amongst those that are doing this work right now, and who are able to provide the landscape and platform for others to also do the work and heal the wounds and injustice and ancestral trauma for the generations to come. So with that, I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonah. And of course, we're going to hear back from everybody today. Well, our fourth panelist is somebody whose story, as I read about it, really is extraordinary, really extraordinary story. And he's doing beautiful work in the world. This is Michael Dyer. Michael was called to teach transformational work from a very young age. As a child, he experienced extraordinary levels of poverty and abuse. He was abandoned by his mother and father at birth and was homeless. He was the victim of sexual abuse and violent crimes. However, he has overcome all of that as best as one possibly could, and has dedicated himself to working with clients ranging from inner city youth, foster children, juvenile delinquents, college-bound teenagers, public and private schools, universities, corporations, drug and alcohol rehabilitation centers, and staff development workshops. He has also worked to implement and facilitate after-school curriculum for students of different age groups. Working with young scholars is his passion. God bless you, Michael, for your life's journey and the work you're doing. And of course, I'm eager to hear again, how did you transform? How did you go from such an extraordinarily difficult childhood and early years into the man that you are?
Wow. Good to see everyone. For me, I had a great hate for myself. Like you said, I grew up in poverty. Mother and father left me. I just thought I wasn't worth anything, and I just felt that I was not valuable, and that I had no purpose to live. And I tried to, the first time I tried to kill myself. I tried to kill myself because at that point, being my mom and dad left me, and then my grandmother, which raised me, I called her Big Mama, and she would get this welfare check every month, like maybe $150. And about 2 weeks or a week before, it ran out, I would go to bed hungry. I had holes in the bottom of my shoes. My clothes my pants were too short, buttons, and so kids would make fun of me. Sometimes we didn't have a hot water or water, and I would go to school and I would be all dirty. I would be dirty. And so my grandmother died. And when she died, I felt like I had no reason to live. I couldn't live without her. I mean, what was I going to do? And so I remember it was a Friday night, and I grabbed the knife from the kitchen, and I grabbed the knife and I held it to my chest. And I was taking a deep breath. I had to kill this pain inside of me. I got to kill this pain inside of me. I got to kill this pain inside of me. I got to kill this pain. And I began to push it as I was getting ready to push it into my heart. All of a sudden, the room got brighter. As the room got brighter, I saw my baby picture. It was on the wall. And I realized at that point that I was killing that baby. And I said to myself, I would never hurt a baby. And I realized at that time that even though I hated myself, I could not hate that child. And I realized that moment that child exists in me, and that I needed to basically love that child, and I needed to support that child. And I remember when that happened, a song came to me, and it was like, it went like this. Love rain down on me. Love rain down on me. Love rain down on me, and I'm free, 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 free. And I remember just holding myself and hugging myself. And at that moment, I just dropped the knife and I kind of balled up. And at that night, I felt like my grandmother reminded me of what she saw in me and saw in this little baby that she took in. Because here's a woman that didn't have a job. She was getting a check. And yet, with not having the income, she took me in and she shared everything with me, you know. And so I guess for me, I work a lot with kids in the juvenile halls, you heard. But as I began to take this journey, and even though I went through that journey at that time and I saved my life, there was other times in my life that I didn't want to live. And I remember spending 10 days in the desert meditating, something called Vipassana. And when I did the Vipassana, like on the third day, you know, you sit there. Vipassana is where you meditate for 10 days and you sit in one place. And you start about 4 o'clock in the morning and then you end about 9 o'clock at night. And what I realized is that all of a sudden I was being attacked by this voice saying, boy, what you think you're doing here? Man, you must be out of your mind. You should be out there working. You know you can't pay your rent. I don't know why you're doing it. You know what? You're never going to amount to anything. You're never going to amount to anything. You're never going to be anything. Dude, you are worthless. And at the point I started talking to the voice, said, why you saying this to me? Now there was nobody out there doing this to me. It was my own inner voice was telling me, and I couldn't understand where did this voice come from, but I realized that the biggest enemy wasn't the people out there. The biggest enemy was that voice inside of me that hated me so bad. And for 10 days, I listened to that voice and it tried to break me down. And I realized that I need to make peace with that voice. I need to change it. Now, I don't know, was it programming me? But at that point, I began to understand where the real enemy lived. Where the real enemy left. So when I work with people now, my job is help them to remember who they are and that they're a unique and powerful being. And I remember what came to me was a saying, and it says, I am a unique and powerful being, expressing myself in security and faith. I give unto earth of my gifts and my talents, and I recognize that it is my thing to give and earth to rejoice in it. It is my thing to share and earth to receive. And I accept from earth prosperity, love, and faith, knowing that it reflects only what's in my heart. That everything was reflecting what's in my heart. All my enemies was the conversation in my head. And so that is where I teach from. That is where I stand in that point. Because my whole life, I was a victim. And so that's what the deal. And matter of fact, I want to show you my baby picture, the picture that saved my life was this dude right here.
Oh, wow. It was beautiful.
And so it was hard for me to hurt that little dude. Thank you, y'all.
Oh, my God. I just want to invite us all to take a breath. That this unique, special moment that there you are, 4 amazing beings. All the life journeys you've been on, I'm so humbled. It really is. You know, as opposed to me even asking another question, I'd just like to open it up to any of you who want to reflect back or share with each other what you've heard, what any of the 4 of you have heard today or seen already with your other panel members, that how that's touched you, how that's inspired you, or how that's reminded you of your own journey. Anybody want to respond?
Yeah, I would love to. You know, when I feel like right now I'm you know, amongst Ohana family. You know, the story that Kenny shared really hit my heart. The story that Yaska shared really resonated in my heart. The story that Michael shared, and see my parents adopted 4 kids, for Black kids. They ran a group home in Oakland during the Civil Rights Movement, Black Panther time, and in deep Oakland. And they ended up adopting 4 kids and moving up to Ukiah with these 4 kids to give them a safer space to grow up. And you know, when Kenny was sharing his experience and talking about Quentin, my oldest brother Michael, you know, rest in peace. You know, he did some time in and out of San Quentin, and it was you know, we always had a wonderful relationship. You know, my brothers, they are 17, 18 years older than I am. So they were graduating high school when I was born. So when I was younger, they were very much like uncles. And you know, and I was the youngest in the family, and they'd come around, and I learned everything, you know, from them. I learned how to sports, how to take care of myself, how to protect myself, how to you know, to rise up, and how to just really come from this loving of self, even from all that. And my brother Keith, who was really close to, he was also, you know, they found him basically as a baby at a dumpster. You know, was where they found him. He had no idea what his parents ever, and that's where they first found him and brought him into the system. You know, and he's a thriving father, and an upstanding individual, and it's just, I just really want to acknowledge how the trials, the challenges, and to change that story. You know, the faith and the spirit and what's happened, these experiences from like the light getting brighter, right? In Michael's story, that there's we're all here, and what our story does is it gives us this, there's context that brings forth the feeling of togetherness, that we feel closer, we feel connected. I feel so much more connected with each of you from the story share, and so my heart's pouring out right now, and just really want to acknowledge us for where we are and what we're currently doing from where we came from, you know, and what kind of changes that, you know, we're able to bring forth by just sharing our story that empowers others to continue to breathe. Oh.
Mahalo. Thank you, Jonah. Jessica, I've noticed tears, and I always like to ask, what do those tears have to say?
Michael, your story touched me so deeply. And I'm like my just like, I know that pain of just like my mother actually, when I was about 12, held a knife in front of her own chest because she was in an abusive relationship with my stepfather, and she was at her end, wit's end, you know. Thankfully she didn't do it, but like, it just, that brought me to that moment. And to know that that little voice, you know, is really the reason why we treat ourselves that way. It brings so much pain because we all have that voice. Whatever it says, there's that just like little bully in our heads that tells us we're not enough, that tells us we're only allowed a certain amount of anything, and we can't thrive and succeed and be worthy of love, and we're just trash, or whatever that is. And that's like what really hurts me, what really hurts everyone, you know, like the reason why people are fighting in the streets, because they're all hurt. And it gives me so much joy to know that you came through that, to hear the song that comes through, because Spirit speaks to me in song as well. And then just to hear, one, you have a beautiful voice. But to hear how Spirit has communicated with you to tell you this is not the way. You get to live here. We need you. And to know that you're out supporting children, to remind them that they get to be here too, that they're good enough, that they're powerful, that they're worthy. And this is what my heart is saying. Yes, more of this, please. Like, if we could just go out in the street and tell everybody that they're worthy. Everybody. You know, I had a moment when we were visiting Oakland just before we came back to Maui, you know, and I'm walking around Oakland, and you know, our car window got busted open the night before, and somebody just stole some insignificant something, and I was so mad. And you know, the car's at the shop, and I'm out with my friend. I'm in the middle of I was on Telegraph, and I don't remember the other street, but right in front of this like Taco Bell, and just Spirit just came through me. And because I saw this interaction between these people, you know, someone in a car and someone walking, and the person walking, I guess, like tapped the guy's car, and he's like, hey, don't touch my car. And he's like, hey, watch out for people, you know? And I just saw this interaction. It was just like two people who didn't know each other, who were just like, rah, at each other. And then Spirit just came through, and I'm like, y'all need to love more. Like, just love more. We need to love each other. We cannot be like yelling at each other and fighting each other over, like, see the man walking, see the man's car, like, pay attention, love each other, please, just love. And I mean, I was so filled and just moved and just speaking the truth of love that, you know. And then these two dark toned children came, and I got to speak to them, and I'm like, y'all, it's about love. You have to know yourself. You have to be strong. You have to be willing. You have to be here for each other and everyone. You cannot fight each other. You cannot fight your brothers and sisters. You cannot fight other people. You have to love. And whatever you do when you go to school, love the people, love your family, love your friends, love your neighbor. Please just like love. And at first, you know, they were, but the girl, she was like listening, and she was intent, and I knew that I was getting through to her spirit. And then the boy, he realized, like, oh, like, because what was coming through me was literally divine truth, because we're all human, and it was this like, love is the answer. We have to love each other. We have to love ourselves, like you're saying, you know, we have to love ourselves so that we can go out and love others, to teach others that they can love themselves too. Because when we love ourselves and when we're at peace within ourselves, we can have love and peace like throughout. That's where world peace comes from, is through inner peace. And the more that we teach, even if it's just the person in your family, or the grocery store clerk, or a kid, or whoever, just one person, because you don't know who that one person is. Gandhi was one person. Malcolm X was one person. Martin Luther King was one person. We're all one person. We don't know what our ripple, how far that goes out. And it's so, so, so important. It's so important that we love ourselves, love our brothers and sisters, no matter what the outside looks like. Because you could have a smelly homeless man or woman, and they could be literally an angel. But because we're like, man, I'm not giving you any money. You're ingrate. You don't know who these people are. They're disguised. Everyone is an angel in disguise. And we have to remember that. We cannot fight anymore. Don't look at my skin color. Look at my heart. I look at your heart. Your heart is what I see, and this is like what I'm feeling. Because when you say you hold the knife to your heart, it's like that's who we are. So no, we cannot. This is the love. This is that song you sang. This is who we are. We need to love more. Period. That's what these tears are saying. Love more, love more, love more. Stop the insanity and love more. We cannot afford to fight each other anymore as people. Brown people, red people, yellow people, white, peach, orange, purple, whatever. We cannot fight each other. We cannot spend another moment to hate anyone or anything anymore. This has to stop, and it starts with us. And by us, I mean this person, that person, these people. Doesn't matter what you look like outside, it's what you look like inside, and that's where it starts. That's where it starts. So let's love more, please. Whoever's watching this, just please love more, love more, love more.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. You know, Love Coach Academy does a lot of shows. We do 2 or 3 online webinars a day. And I want to say we've been doing that for months since the pandemic started. This is absolutely the most important webinar we have done for me in my reality. The stories you're each sharing, the lives that you are living, the journeys that you're on, and where all of you have come to. And you know what? It gives me tremendous hope. You know, there's a lot of people right now that are really scared and a lot of reasons to feel hopeless. Some of the people that are in positions of power and the absurd things they are saying and doing. But I just got to say that listening to each of you is giving me so much hope. Ken, Michael, I'd love to hear from you, either of you, both of you, kind of next. And Jessica, thank you. Yes, love more, love more, love more, love more, love more. Yeah, and Love Coach Academy, we twinkle. Ken, what's up for you as you've been, what are you thinking, feeling? What would you like to share? You got to unmute, Ken. It's that technology.
Okay, technology. Okay, unmute myself. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, for me, this has been a unique experience. So I thank you, Scott and Trish, for inviting me to hear brothers and sisters of the same color speak about their awakening experience and how it happened for them and how it is happening for them. And to hear the stories is quite touching and emotional, because I hear so few, but now that Black Lives Matter has put us in the spotlight, I'm able to see how each person comes to spirit in a very unique and amazing way. I never would imagine the way Michael spoke of it. I never would imagine the way Jonah spoke of it. And also Yasika. It's absolutely amazing. And so, and I look at how I made my journey to spirit, to consciousness, to this moment. And it was also very painful. And I realized that as African Americans, or as human beings really, we have a painful way of coming to spirit. I was in Sonoma, California, and I was talking to a guru by the name of Baba. And I was asking him, I said, why do these type of people end up in the ashram? Sitting at your feet meditating. He says, Kenny, people that come to the ashram are deeply hurt and deeply wounded. And they're coming here to seek comfort and solace. So please be compassionate and gentle to them. And what I'm experiencing now is how can I experience more compassion for myself, my journey? Because the more compassion I can experience for myself in my journey, then I can include everyone in this panel and everyone that's out protesting, everyone that don't think they need compassion or love. Because I see everyone and everything as me. If since, or my spiritual experience says, since I am all and all is me, well, everyone's experience is me. And I do my work on, I have a practice called Ho'oponopono. That's one of my I use from Hawaii rather. Dr. Hugh Lin, he does Ho'oponopono. I start using Ho'oponopono in my practice to help deal with my subconscious programming. And I am saying now, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And I'm constantly repeating that. And so now I'm saying that now because the stories and the emotions that are coming up for me are propelling me to do my work now. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. I just want to acknowledge some of the comments coming in. Raquel writes, such vulnerable, powerful stories. It's so beautiful to witness all of you. Thank you. And David writes, Amen. Love, love, love. Michael, what would you like to share? What's going on inside of your hearts in this moment?
Well, I'm very touched by Jessica said and everyone has said. You know, I realized that it's funny. I've been hiding behind the things that I share is I've been ashamed to share because growing up in the projects, you cannot show vulnerability. If people see vulnerability, they attack you. And so what I learned to do as a kid, because I was being bullied, is that I would work out and I would pray to God, make me big, make me strong, make me tall. And I would hide behind that wall and not show it. But I realized that true strength is being able to be vulnerable. True strength is being able to say, hey, you know, this is who I am. This is how I feel. Because I would never want any people to know that, you know, growing up, you know, being dyslexic, they put me in a special class because the teacher labeled me as slow. And I would hide behind all those things because I didn't want anybody to know. And I'm listening to Yasika and I'm listening to everyone, and that vulnerability is actually the strength. You know, and hearing Yasika speak, it was like my story. I'm not alone in this journey. And maybe in the world, somebody could hear my story and maybe it would help them. So it becomes bigger than myself, bigger than me. And I think that's why Spirit, even being dyslexic, I think the Spirit gave me an opportunity to work on writing a book. And I remember being in school and the white lady said to me in my class, well, she was the counselor. She said, you take this test to find out what you're good at. And she said, son, your test showed that you'll be good at working with your hands. So you might think about being a mechanic, you know, something that you can use your hand. And I was thinking, I don't want to do that. I want to do something else. But that's what the test says. And so that label got on me. And so when I wrote this book, after being told like it would never happen, it's like we get an opportunity in this lifetime to define ourselves. And that all the love that I was looking for, it was me to go back and to rescue my inner child, my little Mikey. And so this thing called life is a beautiful journey. And so I don't know, this is great. This is great. I don't really, I do want to share my book though, and it's called Woke. You know, I don't know if you guys can see it, Woke. It sort of gives insight on the things I went through and my journey and my process of how I came through it.
Michael, please give us the link, which I'll post in all of our, we're cross-posting on 15 different pages and groups. Also
Okay.
created by Awake TV and New Realities TV. And the
Okay.
vast people that watch this are going to watch the replay.
Okay, great. So maybe I'll say you can go to Amazon, Michael Dyer Woke. Michael Dyer Woke on Amazon. Cool.
And I know, of course, Ken also wrote a book. Just while we're on the book part of this, Ken, how to tell us about the name of your book and how people can get it?
Okay. The name of my book is called The Last Hustle, and I'm in the process of actually revising the book because I realized that it was about my journey as a street hustler, in and out of prison for over 20 years, and then meeting my spiritual teacher, Gangaji, in the year 1994, and then getting out of prison, and then going back into different prisons in San Francisco, San Quentin, and also Oregon, Maui, Bali. I traveled, wherever I went, I was invited to go to the prisons and share my spiritual experience with those incarcerated. And the book can be found on Amazon, and my nonprofit organization is thissacredspace.org. And also the book, The Last Hustle, can be seen there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to hear about all of your organizations. By the way, Jessica Britt just bought Michael's book. So thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Jessica.
There you go. You got it. In the old days, it was autographed, so we get like on a Zoom acknowledgement, right? That's the new world we're in. So all of you are involved in various ways of helping young people, mentoring young people, working with young people, starting nonprofit organizations, running organizations, and that's a lot of work. And so I'd love to just ask each of you to share a little bit about the work you're doing with young people and your organizations. Maybe we'll, let's go to Jessica.
Hi. So the young person that I'm working with most closely is my own daughter. As I work with her, I work with my own inner child. Serve, the See, Embrace, Reflect, Value, Empower came by way of, I actually took a like a weekend course Lisa Nichols did back in 2018, and Serve came to me then because I recognized that the more people that I would interact with, you know, they'd have that small voice kind of that Michael talked about, and oh, I can't do this and I wanna, but and I just would naturally empower them. Yes, you can. Your dream is important. This is what you need to do. Like, if this is all you want to do, go for it. And I found myself to be a cheerleader for people, and I'm really, really good at that. And so I do my best to see people, humans, as like their most brilliant divine being, so that I can speak to that inside of them, even if their small mind doesn't allow them to be that. And so my work is literally as I meet people, one person at a time, and hear that small voice talk, and I say, no, small voice, you don't get to talk. we get to talk to the big voice, which is the one that is the reason they're here, which is to live their dream, to be their best, to go after their passion, to thrive. And so my work is literally just person to person as I meet them, doing the best that I can, and always working on myself too. So just the human to human contact, you know, is what we all need. And that's my playing field.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. Michael, tell us about your work with young people.
I have been working for the last 5 years with organizations, a nonprofit organization called Spirit Awakening Foundation, where I go into the juvenile halls and work with kids who are incarcerated. I do mentoring for at-risk kids at certain schools, continuation schools. That's what I'm doing. I also have a website called Coach with Zen, which is my website where people want to reach me or work with me. It's coachwithzen.com. Coach with Zen. And it's been amazing. It's been amazing to work with kids that are locked up, because you can look at and you can see that a kid can become a product of their environment. And I remember the story this little girl told me. She'd been locked up 13 times since she was 13 years old. And she says when she was little, she watched her father die. She said when she was like 12, she had a pimp, which was a female, that she got pregnant. And she talked about how her environment had created. So I'm looking at this young lady, and she's smart, she's beautiful, but the environment that she grew up in created, she wasn't safe. And so my thing is that, and it was a beautiful thing. I remember telling her, I believe in you. And she started crying. And I realized that my job is to see in someone when they can't see in themselves. And our job is to see in someone what they can't see in themselves. That's your job. And hold that space for her. And at that moment, I realized why I do this work. I do this work to help people, to remind them to see what they can't see until they can see it for themselves. It's not about money. It's about the fact that that's why I'm here. And when my days are over, and when it's over and it's gone, that somebody could pass it on to somebody else. I see you.
Thank you so much. I'm usually not speechless, and this is about the most speechless that Scott Catamas gets. After each of you speaking, I'm just like, breathe. When I was talking to Ken last night, we were connecting, doing a sound check actually, we discovered that we both had been deeply inspired by the same book. And it was remarkable that I happened to bring it up. And it's a wonderful book by Bo Lozoff called All Doing Time. And, you know, and then it turned out, and I haven't met Bo Lozoff, but boy, his book made a big impression on me and really changed my life in some ways. And then that Ken also had been deeply touched by it and actually worked with Bo Lozoff. And so I just want to kind of acknowledge that. And Ken, tell us a little bit about how that idea of we're all doing time and that we all have to break out of the prison of our beliefs, how that has impacted you personally and how you share that with others.
And I think it was 2002 or 2003, I was attending a workshop in Sacramento, California. A young lady advised me, you should go and see this guy named Bo Lozoff. Well, as synchronicity would have it, in 1986, I was in Lewisburg Federal Prison, and I was in solitary confinement. And I was reading Bo Lozoff's book, We're All Doing Time. And I said, well, this is a weird guy. This guy got Christianity, he got meditation, he got yoga, he got all kind of a hodgepodge of things to snap you out of your story, And so I loved the book, and that book got me started meditating, believing that I could overcome my situation. I was doing 40 years in federal prison for writing bad checks, and I just started on the sentence, so I had another, I don't know, 6 or 7 years to do. And so what happened was, I go to Sacramento, I'm sitting in a small group, and I meet Bo, and I tell Bo who I am, and I read his book, and he says, I want you to come down to San Quentin next week, and I want you to go in with me. So they set it all up, and we were going to go to San Quentin. And Bo says, and we got to the gate, and the prison guard could not find my name, and so it says, you can't go in. So Bo said, let Kenny go in, and I'll stay out. Well, they didn't do it, of course not, but that was the beginning of my prison work. And then a year later, I started going into San Quentin. Not a year later, but about a month later, I started going to San Quentin doing prison work. Over the years, I was staying in contact with Bo until his untimely death in Maui in a motorcycle accident. And that really touched me because Bo was like my hero, from afar. Then he was my hero up close, and he was the instigator and motivator for me to do and work with people incarcerated. And the teachings that I was taking in prison at that time for 6 or 7 years was letting go of the story. Whatever your story is that's coming up, you can let go of that story. Well, what happened, I remember distinctly. I was coming out of the San Francisco women's jail, and I had been working with the women, and I walked out and I looked back at the county jail and I said, I can't go back in anymore. And what came up for me was what the work that I was doing was not having the effects that I wanted to have upon them. One person might hear a little bit, but after seeing thousands and thousands of inmates, there wasn't this shift or change that I knew that was possible. I knew I was missing something. Fast forward to 2019. I went to Bali, and I was dealing with my own issues, depression, and I meet a brother who also had been doing prison work. He was doing Reiki work, he was doing healing work, he was doing Tantra work. This guy was a shaman. He is a shaman. He was doing everything. And he advised me to look in the direction of neuroplasticity or neuroscience. And so I dived in with both feet, and I started studying neuroscience and neuroplasticity. And I learned a few techniques to access the frontal lobe of the brain. I have discovered in the last 2 years that it is in the frontal lobe of the brain where we have all the power, where we have our ability to recreate ourselves. And there are a number of techniques now that I have in my toolkit to aid and assist people. I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, a young lady in Maui called me at her wit's end. They were about ready to commit their son to an institution because they couldn't deal with it. And so they says, Kenny, you are last, so would you talk to him? I said, sure. So she took the phone, gave it to him yesterday. He's sitting in a room, and he got one of those little Maui flowers in his ear. I said, take the flower out your ear, young man. We about ready to do some work here. And so I asked him a question. I said, what's going on? He says, man, I'm just depressed. I'm sad. I'm this. And I don't know which way to go. I'm 27 years old. And I said, do me a favor. Do me one favor. I said, be still. Take your little 2 fingers and just stimulate the side of your brain. And he started stimulating the side of his brain, which is called tickling the amygdala. because we have something in the brain called the amygdala, and the amygdala is that organ that senses fear, fight or flight, and it will kick back, and all the blood, all the energy will go to your arms and your legs for you to fight or flee from the enemy. And so I recognized immediately that this young man was in fight or flight mode. I said, do me a favor to stimulate your amygdala so it will push forward. He stimulated the amygdala and the energy went to his forehead. I said, keep stimulating, keep stimulating. He kept kicking his amygdala, kept kicking his amygdala. And pretty soon he was like, wow, man, wow, ooh, yeah. I said, how do you feel? Well, I feel this sensation right here in my forehead. I said, yes, you have just accessed your frontal lobe. I said, do me a favor. I said, also, do you play, I didn't know he played musical instrument. I said, do you play musical instrument? He said, yeah, I got a guitar over here. I said, take your guitar, go to the beach, and best play music. He says, you know, I was thinking about either sitting here playing the guitar or go hanging out with my friends. I'm gonna take my guitar, I'm gonna go to the beach, and I'm just gonna hang out with my friends and just play my guitar. And I said, beautiful. How do you feel right now? I had to check in with him. I kind of knew how he felt. I said, check in, how do you feel? He says, I am so happy right now. I said, good. Go to the beach. Then I talked to the mom. I said, Mom, don't worry about it. I got him. I'm going to keep working with him. So I called him back today to check in with him. I said, how you doing? I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how were you yesterday? He said, yesterday I was about a 2. I said, how are you today? He said, I've been working and everything, sweating and everything, but I feel like I'm a 6 today. I said, great. I said, now you know what to do. You got the practice, you got the tools. One toolkit. You want a little tool. I was going to keep ticking the amygdala because your amygdala is what controls the brain. The amygdala runs the brain. And so if you can stimulate, and they have done studies on deeply depressed patients, if you can get them to stimulate or tickle their amygdala and send their word, the consciousness to the forehead area, to the frontal lobe area, immediately that person is in a state of creativity. Unlimited possibilities immediately become available to them, and a sense of I can do anything is available to them immediately. I am now able to work with people from all walks of life because I have now become equipped with the knowledge that the brain is our ally. The brain is our friend. We are the tree of life. If you look at the body, this is the crown. You look at the tree, this is the crown. And then you look at the spinal cord, you look at the central nervous system and the vagus nerve and all that, and you look at, they're like roots and they're running out into the universe. So we are the tree of life. And our brain is the crowning achievement of the human species. And you need to know about the brain in order to be truly free.
Whoa.
And so that is what I teach now. I teach people how to access the power of the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, and how to utilize this tool through the medium of consciousness to stay free.
Thank you.
And since everybody throwing a book up, I'm gonna throw my book up there real quick. It's called The Last Hustle.
I put the spotlight on that. What about comparison? The Last Hustle.
The Last Hustle. I ain't through hustling, y'all. Know what I'm saying?
I'm glad you're hustling the book right now. That's Jonah. You know, I'm going to turn over to my partner Trisha because she hasn't had a chance to say anything. But what you're doing is beautiful because that's what we teach in Love Coach Academy. We teach people how to go from reptile brain activity to frontal lobe response.
That's right.
So it's beautiful to hear that from you and your, you know, how you've come around to that. Trish, wow. How you doing, and where would you like to see us go next?
I was really touched by each of your stories about your life, and I connected to a lot of the stories of my life as well. Grew up in a trailer park in Montana, lived in Willits, and struggled with, gosh, abusive, codependent relationships and drug addiction, and lots of like some deep sexual abuse as well. And so, like, really connecting to each of your experiences there, and really feeling my heart connected to all of you. You know, yeah, Sika was saying, it's just like, wow, I really felt you in that. It really is love. And what I felt most in all of this conversation is that you each touched on mindset, and how we have a mindset that is taught to us, and that our job, our work is to really reparent ourselves in some way, or to change our brain chemistry. There's many ways to change brain chemistry, and I thought the neuroscience was like that. Like, woo! I love talking about neuroscience. So thank you there, Kenny. And what I'm really touched as well by is that each of you have a connection to the children, and I've always believed that children are our future. They are. They will be taking care of me and taking care of us, and they will be coming up and sharing their voices. And where I want to take this conversation, and I hope you guys as well, is what can parents do to help foster the unification mindset, as well as, you know, healthy, productive as meaning like heart-centered productive, and truth in their lives. Like, how can we foster not only the mindset for ourselves, but for our children in the world? Anybody?
Who wants to tackle that? Michael, do you want to go there, since you've done so much work with young people?
Wow, I'll give it my best shot. Okay. I believe that each child comes into the world with their own purpose, their own journey. So I believe that they pick their parents. So because I believe that, then there's no accident. Now, and I guess in a perfect or a great world, I would love to see a parent sort of honor that child, and not try to ask Spirit, how can I be of service to this child? How can I be of service to this child? And maybe ask every year, how can I be of service to this child? I feel that the download of Spirit will guide you, because whatever lesson that soul needs to learn, they pick you for a reason. So there's no accident. But I would say this, and I said it earlier, about just really see your child for who they really are. See the love in them. Hold that vision for them, so when they're crying, see their strength. Something somebody once told me, like, sometimes parents can be protective for their child, and they'll hold their child. And just imagine you got a child, right? And they fall and they hurt themselves. And what you do is that you say, you know, baby, I'm never gonna let you fall again. I'm gonna hold you. And they hold the child for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Baby, I ain't gonna let you fall anymore. Now they think they're doing a great job. They think, I am protecting my baby. I'm protecting my baby. And then 10 years later, the child can't walk. So I share that to say that what you may call protection may not be protection. Maybe it just stands that, baby, you can do this. You can get up. Okay. So, but follow that intuition, find that mindset, because Spirit will guide you. Because then, you know, I think somebody said it, that we're a spiritual being having a physical experience, not the other way around. And think about spirit. Course of Miracles said, what is real cannot be threatened. What is not real does not exist. Herein lies the peace of God. Think about that. So when you're addressing the child, address the spirit, address the eternal, the infinite being that exists within the child. Relate to that child as that infinite being. Because maybe, and just maybe, that child is there to teach you. That could be your teacher. How about that?
Boom. Absolutely. Jonah, we haven't heard from you for a bit. Jonah and Michael are giving each other this here.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, brother, that was right on point right there. It's funny when Zola, when our daughter was conceived, and even a bit before that, where I feel like my higher self and the spirit in me knew she was coming. I was actually calling. I was seeking a teacher. My spiritual teacher, and that's exactly who I see Zola as being. In our experience, she is my greatest teacher, and the learning that takes place, and seeing her for who she is, and how I can best be of service to her and to her growth is directly related to coming back into, well, how could being the best that I can be for myself, because there is no separation there. She's 100% of me. She's 100% of Yasika, and she's a spiritual being having a human experience. And when you brought up the notion of protection, one of the things, like the probably the main areas that I've been focusing in on in terms of project and as an organization is to co-create the space. And I also love acronyms, and space is a sacred, protected, activated, conscious environment. And it's like to really just have the protection is not to protect, her from the experience, or any child from the experience that they're to have, but for them to feel safe, to feel they're supported, that they're loved, that they're cared for, that they have community around them, that they have everything that they need for them to self-realize, for them to pursue their imaginations and their dreams. And they all come, like every single one of us, is in the same way we choose our parents, we all come here with a purpose in order to fulfill that. We choose our path, and so, how, instead of getting in the way of like what, especially in education, and in the old way of education, has been so much about, telling children what they're supposed to do, and how they're supposed to do it, and where they're supposed to do it, and when, and standardized testing, and box kind of mentality. And we're just contorting ourselves to fit inside of these boxes. And instead, where most learning occurs is through our play, is where our potential truly lies, is in playing, is being in our imagination, and being in our creative, being in that frontal lobe where we're creating all the time, and to stay out of fight or flight, and so how do we co-create that type of environment, and that starts with each one of us, is to hold the sacred space of within, so that we're vibrating at that frequency. And I've seen it firsthand with kids. And when I'm in a good space, I'm a safe space for them, and they gravitate towards that, and that's the environment that, we need to cultivate more of for each of us, as not only for the children in the future, but in this moment, like for everyone, because of the inner child work that we're all doing. We're doing so much inner child work right now, and a lot of that is coming through by way of, the children coming in to be the master teachers. Remember, one of the gurus that I was listening to was sharing that, like, to look at it as they're younger, but they're actually older, because they've come back through and incarnated, and they were here before. It's like this constant evolving and revolving door, and the lessons they're here to teach is because they're the next generation, and they're our teachers. And so that teacher student relationship is the interaction of life. And Kenny's Tree of Life, I love that also, and I've been really focusing in on this Tree of Life template and format to work through literally like rites of passage and initiation, of reclaiming our sovereignty, of realizing the Tree of Life that we all are a part of, and that we are ourselves trees inside in this forest, and the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. It's like we're there, and what makes a forest strong is the unity of at the root level. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonah. Thank you. Our show usually only goes an hour, and I feel like we're just beginning to touch each of you. Like there's part of me that's been bouncing back and forth between wishing I had just one of you, because each of you have so much to share. But it's also been so beautiful having you get to meet each other and hear each other's stories. So I just want to remind everybody watching that all four of these amazing beings that you're seeing are going to be guests on tomorrow night's Saturday Night Live for the Global Peace Tribe show. Our theme is honoring Black voices. I'm grateful that I've gotten to meet all of you. And I'm going to invite each of you to please come be on some of our Love Coach Academy shows where you can have an entire hour, and we can really take in more of your wisdom, more of your story, more of what you're sharing. Thank you, everybody at home watching. Please share this, please share this on your timelines, in your groups, on your pages. I want to thank Alan Steinfeld and New Realities TV that's carrying it, Awake TV that'll be carrying the replay. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing all four of you tomorrow on our Saturday Night Live show. Thank you so very, very much. I'm going to end the Facebook live stream, but we'll stick around for a second to say goodnight to each other. Thank you, everybody on Facebook. And come back tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. for Saturday Night Live for the Global Peace Tribe.